Howdy, folks. It's Lee. You are back with Follow the Leader. This is your host, Lee. I am so thankful that you're back here today. We are with Chaplain Chris Linzey of the U.S. Navy. He's an active duty chaplain. Sir, thank you so much for being here today.
It is absolutely my pleasure.
Folks, a lot of y'all have been asking, what is a military chaplain? What do they do? What is the chaplain corps? This is an excellent opportunity this week to speak with an active duty Navy chaplain who also served in the reserves and the Army. So, a couple different experiences that he can speak to today and share why it's so important that our armed forces members have access to a chaplain and the spheres of influence that they provide in the spiritual caregiving for our soldiers. Oh, so, Chaplain Lindsay, thank you so much again. Tell me, where are you from? What's your faith background? How did you just tell us a little about yourself? What's your story?
Sure, I'm from Southern California. Went to high school and grew up in the San Diego County area, North County, little surf town called Encinitas. And then when I was probably in middle school, I felt a pull towards the military. And then as I was getting ready to graduate high school, felt that my personal calling was more towards ministry. And so I decided to not pursue being a line officer in the military, and then went to a Bible college to train to go into ministry. Uh, Went through Bible college and still felt like there was a piece of me that wanted to serve. I'm a big believer in civic service, so I looked into law enforcement, but there was no ministry outlet with law enforcement, so that wasn't the right fit. And then at that time, one of my mentors said, "Have you considered chaplaincy? It gives you an opportunity to serve while doing ministry at the same time." And it seemed like a perfect fit for my own personal calling, and talked to my wife about it. And when your family is on board, then it's very easy to move in a direction. And then joined the Army as an Army Reserve chaplain. And while I was pastoring a church, and then after a while realized that wasn't where I was meant to be. And again, talked to my wife and said, "What about this opportunity to laterally move to the active duty Navy?" And she didn't even hesitate. She said, "I think this is the door opening for us. We need to do this."
Right.
And so I put in my packet to go active duty with the Navy and got selected, and I've been here since 2015.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. I do want to acknowledge your profile picture. Looks like it's photos from your wedding day, and you look very happy with your wife. So I'm glad to hear that. Very beautiful photo. Can you share a little bit? Was military like in your world? Did you what was calling you to the military? Was that something that was weaved into your theology and church growing up? Did you have someone around you? What inspired you specifically that way?
Yeah, for me specifically, I have a lot of family that have had a path that go through the military. I don't know the percentages, but being at an entry level training command where my Marines come to learn their military job, there's a huge percentage of military officers and enlisted that have military in their family. So that puts it in their head. And for me, my grandfather had been a Navy chaplain, and then I had an uncle who was a Navy chaplain. My father was an Army chaplain. He's retired now. So the idea of serving country and our faith, it was just always a part of my understanding of opportunities and ways to serve. In fact,
That's
I entered the ministry to be a pastor intentionally to get away from the military, because I thought that's my dad, that's grandpa, that's not me. And so I liken it to the story of Jonah getting a call and running the opposite direction. And it took me a few years to realize it might be dad and grandpa, but it's also me too for my own sense of call.
I think that's so important to realize that so many folks go into the military because they have family that are in the military.
Yes.
And I was reading and this is 2018. I've been going back in the chaplain files. I was reading an article about one of the struggles of chaplain recruitment is particularly chaplains, is how many folks have military family around them and just the changes in recruitment. And that's one of them. If you don't have family or something to tie you, it can be hard to recruit. I've read through your blog that you have been able to travel just see quite a bit of the world, meet a lot of different people. Um, Tell me, what is chaplaincy? How does a minister go from, civilian ministry into military chaplaincy and talk about that role for you?
Sure. First of all, I will say I absolutely love being a chaplain. It is by far the one of the best ministries I've ever done and participated in, and I love the opportunity to work with service members. For me, the huge difference between military chaplaincy and civilian pastoring is it's about the audience. All right, it's about the flock. I hate using that word because people are not sheep and I'm not a shepherd, but we use that symbolic language. But chaplains, because we serve with such a wide variety of the population that is not homogenous, it's not like us, so it's very much like working in a foreign culture. And so, in that sense, there are a lot of endorsing agencies that consider the chaplaincy to be part of their missions program because chaplains are sent out from their faith groups to work with the military, not in a traditional ministry or church setting. And so I love working with people who are not like me. And I've had an opportunity to meet such a wide variety of people from backgrounds and families and cultures, and it's been an incredible opportunity these last 10 and a half years on active duty.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. Like you said, it's a multi-faith workforce, and you're coming from your tradition. You're walking into, I mean, the military itself is a world. It's got its own jargon. It's got its own it's got its own uniforms. But it's got its own just own system and way of doing things that is populated by Americans, right? And all the different ways that Americans um, are theologically motivated and why they would want to join the war or join the military and join the cause of defending uh, our country. On the note of on chaplaincy, can you talk about do military chaplains, for my audience, do you typically just stay at the base, at the chapel? Do you go to a clinic or a hospital? Where could we find a chaplain?
That is a great question, and it depends on which branch of service you're talking about. Because different branches of service have a different ministry model for their chaplains. The Air Force has a more of a chapel centered model, just because of the nature of the Air Force with the wing, the planes. So chaplains are more focused around the chapel itself. In the into the command, and because we are embedded into the command, we mostly will do services. When we do services, it is not in an official chapel setting. Sometimes we can get assigned to a base chapel, but when we are operational, assigned to a battalion or a ship, our services are going to be in the field or out to sea.
And I saw that you led a sunrise service on a Navy ship. How cool. What a special event that you put on for your folks. You could do it on the ship. Watch the sunrise. It can be anywhere.
We did. We were deployed, and it was around Easter that year. And so I cleared it with the ship's captain. I said I want to do a sunrise service out on the flight deck, and we were in the middle of the Persian Gulf, and So he said, "Yep." And so we cleared the deck, and we set up. My religious program specialist and I set up for service, and we did a sunrise service in the middle of the Persian Gulf that Easter.
It's really special. What a special um, Easter service that you were able to have for yourself and for Provide. And you said these were seamen and Marines. I'm sorry. These
Yes,
were,
yeah,
yeah,
my sailors and Marines.
fantastic. So with the different, what did you notice when you went from the Army and the reserves to the Navy and active duty? Those might be two different questions, or maybe not. But what was it like to make that transition in terms of what your chaplain role looked like?
Sure. Um, well, there's a big cultural difference between the Army and the sea services. And so there was a big piece of trying to wrap my head around moving from a soldier to a sailor, different understanding of ranks, different names for ranks, how things are done. That cultural piece was a big mind shift. In terms of chaplaincy, I'll be honest, there's not a whole lot of difference. What chaplains do is the same. The context in which we do it changes. So I was able to take what I did as an Army Reserve chaplain and do the same types of things as a chaplain to sailors and Marines, just a different context. They did make me go through the schoolhouse all over again.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
I did
And
the
what,
Army chaplain course back in 2010. And when I was shifting over to the Navy in 2015, I asked, I've already done the chaplain course with the Army. Can I just go straight to the fleet? And they said, no, it's a completely different service. You've got to go to the Navy chaplain school. So I went back to the exact same place because the Army and the Navy chaplain schools were both co-located at Fort Jackson at that time in South Carolina. So I went back to the same base, to the same schoolhouse, and I did the Army chaplain school in 2010 and the Navy chaplain school in 2015.
really?
And for most part, it's the same. What they teach you about chaplaincy is very similar. It's just the context in which we do it changes.
Absolutely. No, that's great insight because it would be curious to know if the chaplain training was any different. And like you said, it's not that much. Um, but it is cool that you can at least attest to that. I'm sorry that you had to go through that to be able to, but um, can you talk about the chaplain training? So the chaplain, what does it look like to take a whole? Because chaplain training, when you're going through it, you were also with other religious leaders. This is you with a different faith group going through. Um, could be in the same Christian, and could be, Jewish, Muslim, or any other the faith that the military recognizes. What is it like to go through chaplain training with other religious leaders?
I guess it depends on your personality. To succeed in what we call a pluralistic environment like the military, chaplain has to be willing to play well in the sandbox with other people. Chaplains who do not play well with other faith groups oftentimes will have a harder go of it. And I've met people who said, "Well, I could never interact with so and so or this group." And I say, "Well, maybe the chaplain corps is not for you because the nature of what we do has us interacting with people who disagree with us, not just have a different take, but actively believe that we're wrong." And
Right,
so we have to have a level of collegiality that extends beyond personal faith and say we are here for the same purpose, and that's to care for the service members regardless of our backgrounds. And one of my best friends here at the base is someone from a different denomination, and we have some specific theological differences on how we view things, but still one of my best friends. And even though he's moved away, we still text and call. So friendships and working relationships do not have to be predicated on the fact that we are part of the same group. And that's especially seen in the chaplain corps because we exist to help facilitate the religious needs of everybody, not just people who agree with us.
And there is a level, like you said, when the religious needs of everybody, and it's almost counterintuitive, but like you're bringing your specific faith, your lens into a diverse situation, but really to address and to uplift the military readiness, and particularly the spiritual fitness of the whole unit. So I thank you for recognizing that, like you said, this is a pluralistic environment in which everyone here has sworn an oath to at least serve the same country. It may not look like the same God, depending on your theology and how you want to word that. Um, so it's a conversation, but it is an interesting job because you're balancing the needs of the state and your faith. Um, and so I thank you. Can you tell me, so the religious chaplains get, for folks who don't know, chaplains get a religious affairs or religious programs assistant. That essentially is their right-hand person. Can you share about your religious programs specialists, is the name in the Navy? Um, and are they the same faith as you? Who are they? Who is your assistant?
That's an excellent question. The religious program specialist in the Navy, we abbreviate to just calling it RP. Religious program specialist is an RP. And the RP is just a Navy job. The Army and the Marine Corps call it an MOS. In the Navy, we call it a rate. The Air Force has its own way of identifying military occupation. But the assistant is just another MOS or military job, just like everything else. And the only qualification is your ASVAB test score. There's no religious requirement for the religious program specialist. And that's the same across all branches of service. Every chaplain assistant, there is no religious test, and that cannot be held against them. So in the 16 years that I've been wearing a uniform as a chaplain, I have had RPs and chaplain assistants who were religious. I've had atheists. I've had LGB uh, chaplain assistants. I've had straight assistants. So there's no any kind of outside test. It's just another military job that gets assigned to the chaplain.
Okay, that's that is a really interesting, yeah, to think that an atheist would be assigned an RP position is fascinating. But of
I've actually
course,
met an atheist RP.
really,
Yes, and he wanted to join as an RP because he wanted to help. He cared about taking care of sailors, and the only route that he could see was to do it as an RP, caring for spiritual fitness. Even though he personally didn't have a religious faith, he understood that spiritual fitness goes above and beyond religion.
right. And in my research of looking into the chaplain corps in the military, um, there have been quite a number of atheists who have been staunch supporters of the chaplain corps. Um, and I didn't really expect them to be anti, but like to be so staunch has been so heartwarming. They recognize how critical it is that the chaplain corps are here and what they serve, what they do. They see how it helps um, their fellow soldiers or their fellow sailors, and so again. While I'm kind of surprised that an atheist was your RP, I just in my interviews, it's something they take very seriously. They want, however they feel about it personally, it seems like they want others to have really good theological, uplifting spiritual caregiving.
Sure.
And so that's special. But yeah, going into has the conversations with your RPs, how have they helped you? What's a good story that you have with the way that an RP has assisted you in your unit or brigade or whatever you consider your
Yeah.
wing?
The RP is useful because they have multiple roles. When we are on base, then they fulfill an administrative and logistics role. They kind of will be an administrative assistant in the office. They can schedule appointments. They will help do setup for chapel services or church services. They can get trained in classes to teach Marines and sailors on certain topics, even though they are not ordained clergy themselves. There are certain military topics that they can become trainers in. And then when we are deployed, then the RP is critical because they can have the ear of the command for people that won't come and talk to the chaplain. And in the military, with the division between the enlisted ranks and the commissioned officer ranks, sometimes it is hard for the chaplain, who is a commissioned officer, to be approachable by junior enlisted. And so the RP, being an enlisted sailor, sometimes will have access and an open door to talking to people to really get the heart of what's happening in the command. And so we can lean on our RPs, say, hey, RP, what have you heard? What's really going on? What's under the surface that is not getting up to my level? And so they can actually be a very useful partner in ministry in caring for our service members.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for taking the time to shed light on the value of RPs. Again, folks are learning not just what the chaplain corps does, what chaplains do, but also the RPs. Because one question that you brought up, the approachability of the RPs being enlisted. Chaplains are officer ranks. Are you able to give commands? Or what is your role as an officer and a minister? How does that go? Clergy.
Yeah, it's weird. I'll be honest, it's weird. Chaplains do not have command and control. If I were on a ship and the ship came under attack and the commanding officer was incapacitated and I was the highest ranking officer left, I would still not take command of the ship. Chaplains do not have command and control. They and so while they give us rank and we can promote, it is not the kind of rank that has authority to move troops. And so people will respect the rank for uh, general intents and purposes, but no, chaplains don't give orders and commands and conduct troop movements. That's not our lane. That's not our role. We're staff corps officers, and we have a different function than, say, a line officer whose job it is to command and move troops.
Mhm. And this is a great question too, because chaplains are also one of the roles in the military that are non-combatants. You do not carry a firearm, correct? Like,
That is
or
true.
and then tell me it's a little wonky. If you are in a situation and you pick up a firearm, you are now a combatant. Walk us through the chaplain guidelines around firearms and being a combatant or non-combatant.
Sure. Historically, if you go back to looking at ministers who worked alongside of the military and militia in American history, chaplains used to carry a musket. And I think you can see that in films when the preacher picks up the musket and joins with the crowd. But in the American military, ever since around 1944, it has been policy that chaplains will not only be non combatants, but they will not handle firearms. And so the way it has come down to us now in 2025 is that chaplains are not supposed to be doing anything that would be seen as a violation of their non combatant status. That means in training or in war, I'm not supposed to be a weapons carrier. And we know that when we sign up. We understand what being a clergyman, excuse me, a clergy person for those women who are also in the chaplain corps, but we understand what that means. And so people ask, well, what if you're in the middle of a firefight? Well, the oath that I took as a chaplain, as a staff corps officer, means that I am a non-combatant. It doesn't change all of a sudden in combat.
Right. And that's very important to recognize, like in the on the field as protected, like because it's also It's practiced in the United States military, but that's also a Geneva Convention article that militaries across the world are supposed to respect. I believe it is the chaplain and the medic. Is there another role that I'm missing? But those
Those
two
are
roles.
those are the two that are supposed to be off limits. Now, medical personnel do carry weapons ostensibly to protect their patients, but they still fill a non-combatant status. They are not supposed to offensively be part of a fight. Their weapons are for defensive purposes. Now, people ask, well, why are medics and Navy corpsmen non-combatants who carry weapons and not chaplains? That's just the policy.
Right? Because your RP is a combatant. They can carry a weapon.
That is true. The RP, the chaplain assistant, the religious affairs specialist, they are classified as a combatant MOS, and they will be the weapons carrier. And while deployed, they act as physical security for the chaplain.
Then
That's
here
that's
you
one of
have it,
the
folks.
most asked questions I get is why can't you carry a gun? That's not my job. I had a senior chaplain explain to me once. He said, Chris, if it comes down to it and you're the last person on a patrol to pick up a gun, the mission's over anyway. You're all in trouble.
That's a good point. No, that's a good point, and I think it is funny because I am from Texas, and I've seen the pastors with the cowboy hats and the guns on their holsters, and I think that's some people want this sort of America gun pastor thing, and you just that it's a totally what Hollywood wants to paint and what the military actually is are two separate things. So, okay, so we talk about spheres of influence. We've talked about your journey as you've promoted through the ranks. You said that you are an O4, a major, correct? Did,
Well,
um,
in the Navy, we call it a lieutenant commander.
a lieutenant commander, yes. Thank you. As you have promoted in the ranks, how has the ministry itself changed? The higher you get, are you able to influence protocols or just kind of talk about, promotion
Sure.
and
In the chaplain corps, the O2 and the O3 are what we would call tactical chaplains. They're the ones who are doing the hands-on ministry with the troops, attached to a battalion or to a ship. And then the more rank you put on, the more you leave tactical ministry and take on supervisory and leadership roles. And so the nature of the job changes, and that's like anything in the military. The more rank you put on, the more you leave the actual hands-on work of the military, and then you take on more of the leadership, the supervision, and directing a bigger picture view. The O4 rank kind of falls within middle management. We're not tactical anymore, but we are not senior officers anymore. So a lot of times the O4 rank is like the neglected middle child.
right, right. Well,
We're not
yeah, right,
tactical, but we're not special. So
right.
it's very humbling to realize that nobody cares.
You're just kind of flying in the middle, you know. Is that it, being in this middle, are you looking forward to more of these supervisory roles, or did you like the tactical face to face?
I love tactical ministry. Being a battalion chaplain, being a ship's chaplain, is where my heart is. I was a pastor as a civilian before coming into the military. And so I love people. I'm a people person. I'm very social. That's why I'm on social media, and probably why I'm a social media addict. I love people and I love interaction. So tactical ministry has been amazing. And one of my fears in promoting is that I will get less tactical ministry. And then one of my mentors told me that even as you promote, you still have opportunities if you are intentional about making those opportunities. What ministry looks like will change, but you only leave the hands-on ministry if you walk away from it, because the opportunities will be there if you pursue them and make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, here I am. Send me, and you will be sent.
Yeah,
So
yeah. At the same time, I am excited about moving into more of a supervisory position and helping train new chaplains coming in who might benefit from some of the mistakes that I have made in my career.
that's true. You will, yeah, you'll be getting into roles where you get to be a mentor. And that's special too. That mentorship is really critical. Can you talk about a mentor that in the military that made a big impact on you?
Yeah, I've got a few, and he knows, and I tell him all the time. He is in any job setting, military or civilian, you will find leaders who are quality people that if they asked you to come do something for them, you would drop everything to go work for them. You'll also find leaders who are toxic and you hope, goodness gracious, I never want to see this person again. And it's the same in any job. And I've been fortunate the last few years. One of my supervisors and mentors has been a phenomenal chaplain and caregiver. The kind of person who doesn't just supervise, but he pastors, right? He wants to be a chaplain for his chaplains. And it's been healthy and healing for me after some years of conflict and distress and wondering, how long am I supposed to be in this? But to have a mentor that can come alongside and be a caregiver for me, it's been huge. And because I've experienced that the last few years, that's what I want to do for the new folks who are coming in behind me.
Absolutely. That is so clutch because um yeah, you coming in and for me, I went in, I didn't have a military background. I mean, my grandfather served, and having folks take me under their wing and help me with just a military culture. If you're particularly, you talked about how you were in the Army Reserves, the reserves too, because you're not fully in the military world, and it's
Right.
like, oh, so that's a whole thing. You talked about how influential chaplains have been on you, what they've done for how you've approached chaplaincy as a role. Um, can you talk about the very intimate and holy and sacred role of chaplain confidentiality?
Yes. That's another one of the big questions I'm asked. The firearms piece is one of the top questions, and confidential communications is the other top question I get. Confidential communications with the chaplain is not just about religious conversation, and it really comes down to issues of religion or conscience. And the instruction is very clear to add conscience because we have some military members who are not religious at all and they need someone to talk to get counsel and feedback and maybe bear a piece of them and be vulnerable in a way that doesn't negatively impact them. So that's why the language is very clear about religion or conscience. And so anything a service member comes to say to a chaplain for those issues of religion or conscience is absolutely 100% confidential. And it is inviolable, meaning that the commanding officer can't compel me to talk about it, and the courts cannot compel me to talk about it. The communication, and it doesn't even matter the means and mode of communication. It can be face to face, it can be a phone call, text message, social media, DM, any way that a service member is trying to engage in communication with their chaplain is automatically assumed to be confidential communications.
And that's really critical too when we look at a armed force members continuum of care. Like if something, can you talk about how a chaplain might play a role in maybe someone is struggling with alcoholism? Perhaps they might be having consequences. Perhaps the military, maybe, but some protocol needs to happen. Can you talk about how a chaplain might play a role in that continuum of care process?
One of the ways that we do that role for continuum of care is that the chaplain can be a resource point person. I don't have to have all the right answers. I do not have that view of myself that I've got to be Mr. Fix It or the answer man. And there may be a service member that comes to me that needs something that I don't provide. Because my lane is very specific in terms of pastoral care with the chaplaincy. If we are talking about issues with substance misuse or any kind of other physical thing that would be more of a medical issue, chaplains don't get to pretend to be doc. I'm not doc, I'm the chaps. And so I will refer out to medical, to mental health, to an appropriate provider. And one of the big pieces that we play in the continuity of care is to be a resource person. Hey, Marine, hey, sailor, I am not the person to help you with this, but I know who I can take you to. And then we can go do that. And in the Navy, we talk about doing a warm handoff. So if
Mm.
I have a Marine who needs to go to medical, then I'll call the doc and say, Doc, this is Chaps. I've got a Marine who has X, Y, and Z going on, and they have waived confidentiality, so I can talk to you about it. I want to pass them off to you for care. And then that Marine or sailor will then go to the appropriate caregiver.
Thank you for explaining that, because that is a question. Because what if someone came to a chaplain and like you said, they were really struggling with something that's not in the chaplain's lane. Um, Chaplains can't diagnose, um, and I do appreciate the respect for science. And on the other hand, in the respect for science, there's things that through prayer and counseling and conversation with clergy can be absolutely beneficial for. And then there's other things that medical world needs to address. So thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Um, that's a really fantastic point. Um, we are kind of wrapping up. Can you share more on can you give us some stories? Of course, privacy and confidentiality, but if you can, just share in a few general ways, some things, some chaplain stories of your career that you're proud of.
Yes. One that comes to my mind, it was a long time ago uh, with a Marine. I don't even know if the Marine is still in the Corps, but he came to me. He was in an entry level training, a young kid, and he was feeling sad and depressed. And in the course of the pastoral counseling, I asked him, "Are you feeling suicidal?" And he said, "No, I'm not." I said, "Okay." I take people at their word unless they are presenting some crazy uh, symptoms. But I asked the question. He said no. And so we sat and we chatted, and then I made a follow up appointment. One of the things that I learned in my pastoral counseling uh, training and career experience is to make a follow up appointment to give someone a hard time and date for a follow up, to give them something to come back to. And so when someone is presenting as sad or depressed, I always make sure to do a follow up appointment to get them back in the office. And for the follow up appointment, the Marine walked into my office, and before I could even stand up from my desk, he pulled a knife out of his pocket. It was closed, handed it over to me, and said, "When you asked me a few days ago, I lied. Yes, I had been feeling suicidal, and I want you to have this." And gave me his knife. And I still have that knife today. I keep it as a reminder of the power of just asking the question, are you okay? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you feeling suicidal? And even though he lied to me, it stuck with him. And he found me to be a safe person to surrender his knife to. We got him the help he needed, and he went about it. Which I think leads me to one of the biggest fears that service members have is that if they talk about their mental health problems, it will end their career. And that's just not true. The goal of the chaplain, the goal of medical, is to get the service members appropriate care so that they can get back to doing the things that they have been called to do. And the overwhelming percent of people who self-report mental health issues go back to full duty.
Really?
It's in the 90s. I don't remember the exact number, but it's in the 90s. Even someone who says I am suicidal, we get them appropriate care, and eventually they go back to work. It's not a ticket out of the military.
Thank you. I think shame and stigma really holds people back and fear. And then,
100%. Yep.
so thank you, folks. Talk to someone. It'll save you a lot of headache. Even with paperwork. And uh, Chaplain Lindsay, you have been absolutely fantastic today. Thank you so much for your service, for your patience, for your heart, for going out and serving our country, and for serving the folks who swore an oath to die for our country. Thank you, many, many thank yous. Um, Folks, Chaplain Lindsay is on. He's got a blog. Do you want me to share the blog or just the TikTok and
Sure,
Instagram?
you can.
All right. Well, folks, Chaplain Lindsay is on TikTok and Instagram. That is Chaplain, ChaplainLainLinzey. He's also on Facebook, and then he's got a blog, chrislindsey.com. Thoughts from my head. Scary, huh? I think we can all relate to that tagline. Thank you for your relatability and your approachability. You're a fantastic chaplain. I hope that, and I'm so glad that the taxpayers can proudly claim you as one of ours and support you. And thank you. So, do you have anything else that I'm missing before we conclude?
Um, Nothing comes to mind. I will say that if anyone is interested in chaplaincy, please ask the question. I love what I do. Being a care provider for service members, it's amazing. And even on my hard days, I still wouldn't trade my job for anything.
Bless you. All right, sir. Well, thank you. And folks, that's another week of Follow the Leader. That was Chaplain Lindsay. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. This will also be on Spotify audio. So if visual isn't your thing, we got it for your ears too. Alrighty, folks, y'all take care and happy holidays. We'll see you later.